Hey, Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club members, are you ready to take your crypto game to the next level? Well, buckle up because we've got something huge for you. As a member of the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, you're already part of the future of finance. But what if you could stack even more Bitcoin without waiting? That's right. We're talking about exclusive loans designed just for you. Through the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, you can apply for a fast member-only loan. Use the cash to buy Bitcoin right now while the market's hot, and watch your stack grow as the revolution unfolds. It's simple. Call us, get approved, and turn that loan into Bitcoin. Pay it back on your terms while you HODL like a pro. Why wait for the moon when you can fuel the rocket yourself? This isn't just a loan, it's your ticket to owning more of the future. And because you're part of our tight-knit community, you get VIP access to rates and support outsiders can only dream of. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your phone and call or text 941-413-6920 to apply now and start stacking saties today. The Bitcoin revolution waits for no one, especially not you. Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, where members don't just HODL, we build. See you on the blockchain.
Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite truck driver, ex-truck driver in the whole wide world, Bitcoin Ben, here for the daily. What in the friggin' fuck is going on in cryptocurrencies? Well, let me tell you guys, this is a revolution. And when I say revolution, I don't mean, oh, hey, guys, there's some companies going to buy Bitcoin. Hey, guys, there's going to be a couple of banks who sell Bitcoin. No. This is much larger than that. And just FYI for you guys, this afternoon, I am doing an interview with a very special guest at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And it will be live, as always. And I think you're going to get a gist of what's really going on. So this episode here, I'm going to try and lead you in to that interview, because what he and I are going to talk about is actually the larger view of Mr. Donald Trump. Now, those who have watched my show for a very long period of time, in 2017, I was explaining how Trump would use the Bitcoin as the nuclear weapon against the Federal Reserve. I had friends of mine, I mean literally good friends of mine here on YouTube who were like, are you crazy? It's like, there's no way that the federal government will ever adopt Bitcoin. And I kept saying, you guys don't know Trump's history, including his bloodline. A lot of people don't know Trump's bloodline. Do you know who his grandfather was? Do you know who his uncle was? Do you know where the Trump bloodline? Remember, his name's Trump. That bloodline goes way back. There's a reason that they chose the name Trump. And if you know the history of Trump's bloodline, then you realize who you're dealing with. See, Trump was friends with an ex-president, right? Actually, a few of them. But the most influential president Trump was friends with, and he sent letters to, in fact, this president, Mr. Richard Nixon, His wife is who originally said Trump should run for president. That was in the late 70s, early, and I think 1979, I think. Now, why is it relevant that Trump knew Richard Nixon? Well, if you understand what happened with removing America from the gold standard, what it really meant. All right, we hear all the time, oh man, we never should have gone off the gold standard. Well, folks, did you know America originally wasn't on a gold standard? No. We were on a silver standard. That's how we actually valued our currency, was on silver coins. In fact, it was never about gold, because at the Revolutionary War, the elites had their money. It was gold. And it continued to be gold all through the 1800s, 1900s. Richard Nixon, the reason he actually took us off of the gold standard was actually he was going to war with the globalists. In the 70s, Watergate. What do you think Watergate was really about? Do you want to know? Very simple. JFK. See, Richard Nixon knew the CIA had actually killed JFK and had evidence of it. And once you realize who was all involved in JFK's assassination, then you start to see the bigger picture. Then you see, wait, we have mafia, we have USSR, we have the progressive movement, and you have to remember what happened in the 70s and early 80s. There were so many, shall we call them, domestic terrorists here in America that were the progressive movement. And we had a lot of influential people that were blackmailed during the 80s and 90s. We've had almost 140 years of infiltration into our country, into the federal government. And it originated, well, the real shift was the Civil War. You have to realize what the Civil War was about. The Civil War was actually to create a new legal system. It wasn't about slavery. That's bullshit. That was a marketing campaign. What it was about was changing us from natural rights, common law, and trust into civil law, and having a U.S. federal government as a corporation. That's why prior to the Civil War, we were known as America. Then all of a sudden, we're the United States of America. That was creating a legal structure of civil law. That's why they called it the Civil War. so that the America Corporation, headquartered in Washington, D.C., and has anyone heard anything about President Trump taking control over Washington, D.C.? Anything kind of buzzing around right now? Yeah. Well, Trump, while everyone else is like, gee, what's Trump going to do? What's really going on? Man, I like some of his policies. I like some of his tax. Guys, that is small potatoes. Trump is returning us to a common law structure. That means because Washington, D.C., all you ever hear is, well, Washington, D.C. is not a state. Yeah, because it's private property of the United States Corporation. It's basically an embassy, legally. It's a completely separate entity from America. And that is why when you hear the progressives and the Democrats always say, well, it's about democracy. What they're talking about is Washington, D.C. It's a completely separate nation. Washington, D.C. is a completely separate entity from America. And now Trump has actually taken control of Washington, D.C. And he, watch for it, folks, he's not going to give it back. Nope. It's over. Washington, D.C. is now under the control of a constitutional president. This is changing everything. That's why they're freaking out so much. That's why Trump, when he was elected in 2016, when he said this is not just another 4-year election. Why did he say 4-year election? Why didn't he just say this is not just another election? And then he said, and all of the swamp was right behind him. All of the goblins were right behind him. And he gave zero fucks. He said, we are giving the power back to the people. Well, when did we lose the power? The Civil War. See, the Emancipation Proclamation, it didn't free anybody. What it did was set the legal structure for enslaving all of us. After the Civil War and Reconstruction, like I said last week, they didn't call it Reconstruction because they were building houses. They were reconstructing the law. They were changing us from a natural rights where the sovereignty resides in the individual to a sovereign nation, a corporation where the sovereignty rests in the nation, not the individual. See, and right after the Civil War and Reconstruction, what happens? How many people here really know what happened between 1868 and say 1890? Do you really know what happened? All you really know is about the Civil War. We had a Civil War. The South versus the North. No. It was so much larger than that. So much larger than that. Because that's, and mind you, this was all brought on from who? Great Britain and London. Because we remember what happened in 1860-ish. The Communist Manifesto. And what was the Communist Manifesto? How to get rid of capitalism. You know at the time what the only capitalist country was? Really? America. That was it. Yeah, I mean, we had Germany. They were getting there-ish. But yeah, we were it. We were a capitalist country. And Andrew Jackson got rid of the National Bank, the U.S. Bank, the Federal Reserve of its time. Why do you think they tried to kill that son of a bitch like 4 times? They shot him in the chest on the way to do a lecture. Dude got shot in the chest and still went and did the lecture. Now that's an American. It is but a scratch. After that, they lost their ever-loving fucking minds because they knew that that's the key to enslaving a nation is through the currency. Because America was so many different type of people. You really couldn't control everyone using race or religion or anything. You really couldn't control everyone. You could actually put people against each other, but you couldn't really control the whole group. Why is it right after Reconstruction, right? And remember, folks, I've always said, and you guys can go back and check the record. The key to all of this is the census. The census has been a lie since 1890. Actually, a little bit earlier than that. Because it's all a lie, folks. We don't have the amount of art actually back. In fact, here's a great example. New York, with the original census after the Civil War, they officially had, I think, like 2.9 million people or something like that. Well, that wasn't enough to give them the congressional seats that they wanted. So they did a recount. And all of a sudden, motherfucker, they had 9 million people. Wow. You know who really controls all of this? The census. Because that's where the power resides. Why do you think what's going on in Texas is actually going on? Well, they're gerrymandering the districts. Folks, the Democrat Party has gerrymandered every single district in America. Look at California. And Newsom, you lousy piece of shit. He was like, oh, hey, Trump, if you don't stop what you're doing, I'm going to jerry-rig California. No shit. Well, gee, they did that in 1930. You're kind of late for that, prick. And that's what's really going on, folks, is Trump. And have you heard how he's like, hey, we're going to have a new census once we ship all these hose A's and hose B's out, and we're going to have a new census. And the progressive movement's like, the you are, because they don't want an accurate count. They do not want an accurate count and an accurate districting for congressional seats, because the progressive movement would just go to absolute shit because they know they don't have the numbers. There's a reason Trump won this last election. Folks, they tried to rig it. They damn tried to rig it. But it was too large to do. There was too much of overwhelming support and too many watchers. And they couldn't rig it. So they knew they were going to lose the election. I mean, look who they put up as president. They literally put up a woman who slept her way to the top and had literally no brains in her head. You think that was the best of the best? No. Everyone else fucking turned it down. Newsom turned it down. You know why? Because he knew they were going to get stomped. Everyone did. Everyone who had the real numbers, not the shit they throw up on CNN and all that. No, they knew they were going to get stopped. And they did. Well, now Trump, what Trump is doing, and like he said in 2016, this is not just another 4-year election, because he knew what was coming. It's easy to predict if you know who you're up against and if you know the system you're up against. I literally have friends today who used to tell me, oh, Ben, there ain't no way. Trump hates Bitcoin. God, no, Trump would never, ever, ever. The federal government, why would they adopt Bitcoin? They do blah, 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 blah. Recently, I've had people go, well, what the fuck, Ben? How the hell do you know that? Because when you know the system, you know how to beat it. You know what it's built on. And our system, the Federal Reserve slavery system, was actually created to enslave America and create a war machine, that's America, and reorganize the whole globe. That's what World War I was about. World War I's number one goal was to create the League of Nations. Well, unfortunately for them, that didn't work. The American people still said, yeah, fuck you. So they're like, you know what? No, they didn't give up. Whatever they do, they don't give up. They're like, you know what? Maybe that war wasn't big enough. Maybe we need another war. So here comes World War II. And the glow. And who funded Germany? How did Germany financially live through World War II? Because they had support of the bankers, just like we had. They ran both sides because the goal wasn't someone win and someone lose. It was the war. The goal of the war was the war. Look into World War II history and how many times the war could have been won very easily. But some government bureaucrat wouldn't allow the generals to do something, which allowed Germany to readjust, and Germany and Japan readjust because they did not want to win the war yet because you have to remember how these people view war. It isn't just the war. It's, well, while we're blowing up shit, let's wipe out this area so we can rebuild it with a Marshall Plan. It was about clearing land. And I'm not bullshitting you with that. That was one of the goals. They were dropping bombs in areas that were already deserted. Just hitting churches, hitting buildings, because they weren't thinking about the war. They were thinking about after the war. How would they rebuild it? These people, the progressive movement, these are evil people. These are people who have no problem if hundreds of thousands of people die. We're just worker bees. They can always get more worker bees. And they created the Federal Reserve so they had the money that they could print up to pay for the war. Because without the Federal Reserve, we could have never went to war. The American people would have said, "What, raise my taxes? Kiss my asses." They needed a printing press so they could go spread some freedom with some bombs. World War I and World War II were set up to reorganize the globe, especially Persia, which is, if you don't know your history, that's the Middle East. I mean, look it up, folks. Hitler named Iran. You think I'm bullshitting? In Arabic, the word for Aryan is Iran. The Aryan bloodline is not blonde hair, fucking blue-eyed people. That's only for the retards who fucking believe that shit. Yeah, Hitler wanted the purebloods, but not the kind not what they taught you, right? Hitler's grandparents were Jewish. So all of the history that you have been taught is absolutely bullshit. Yeah. So they launched the Federal Reserve. They have World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all these little wars afterwards. Well, we're fighting communists, sons of bitches. Who ran the communists? It was the progressive movement out of London. It was the communists out of this London School of Economics. It was the Fabian Society, because the Fabian Society, I'll say one word, Pike. Those who know. They split. They had two agendas. One was war, revolutionaries. Okay, send those over to Prussia. And if you don't know what Prussia is, look into some history, guys. Those were the revolutionaries. Those were the Stalins, and those were the Bolsheviks. I think that's how you pronounce it. Those were the war. Those were the war people. And then they sent out the progressive movement over to America through education systems like colleges and universities and shit like that. That's where Shaw, Mr. Bernard Shaw, comes in. They were the roots of the progressive movement in America. After the Civil War, hell yeah, they brought them all in. Because look into it, guys. When were the universities taken over? 1800s, late 1800s. This has been a long invasion. And Trump. Look at 1917. In fact, as soon as you're done watching this, hop on YouTube and look up Trump says 1917. He has mentioned 1917 about 200 times. Why? Why would he bring up 1917 over and over again? And remember what he has said. We are going through something that we haven't went through since 1917. Now, a lot of people, but if you listen to what he was talking about, a lot of people assumed he was talking about the pandemic. Now, mind you, 1917, yes, that's when the Spanish flu hit. Guys, if you want to see what happened in 2019 and all that shit, just look back to 1917. The whole country shut down. Everyone wore masks. The economy was in shambles. It was all planned. The Spanish flu was all bullshit, folks. Do you know what most people actually died of during the Spanish flu? Aspirin overdose. Yep. Look it up. Google that shit. Don't take my word for it. Most people died of aspirin overdose. Because with aspirin overdose, your lungs fill up with fluid. And they were prescribing the shit out of aspirin. Which, how long had aspirin actually been around? And what was in the new aspirin? See, folks, after the Spanish flu, right after that, is when we had the Red Scare. Do you know what the Red Scare is? That's when some of the people in the government realized, wait a second, the federal government has been infiltrated. And they were right, because it had been. And a lot of unions had been infiltrated with the communists. And I'm telling you, folks, this is just rinse and repeat. And 2019, the pandemic was supposed to be the global reset. Wait, remember somebody talking about a great reset? Wasn't there a great reset or something supposed to happen? Oh, it did. Well, the great global financial reset, that happened in 2008. Just no one really realized it. Well, since then, guys, we have been living on printed money. That's it. Productivity has shifted. And inflation is absolutely a lie on what they tell us it is. And really, does anyone really care in Washington, D.C.? We remember, folks, these are the same son of a bitches that will take us to war and kill millions of us. Do you think they give a flying fuck if you pay a little extra for eggs? No. Because their priority is the system of control. And I've said this several times. When you print the money, it isn't about the money. If you're the corporation or the entity that prints the currency, you're not in it for the currency, folks. You can print the shit out of that thing. They're in it for the control. This new era with Trump now, this is for all the marbles, folks. All the marbles. Marble they. That's why Trump is implementing the Bitcoin. He's letting the Bitcoin and helping the Bitcoin infect the system, because the orange pill is the red pill for the system. It's the poison pill. It's the poison orange pill for the system. Do you really think Trump is just so, yay, Bitcoin? Great technology. It's awesome. Yay. Now, folks, it's because it's what takes out the old system. Because it's a system of lies. It's a system of inaccuracy. It's a system of rehypothecation. It's a system of derivatives. It's a system of absolute paper bullshit. Well, how do you go to war with a lying system? You drop in an incorruptible, incorruptible, one of those, an incorruptible system that is decentralized, and you let it absorb all the lies. Because what the Bitcoin is, the wave of the Bitcoin is the wave that is pulling away and showing who has on swimsuits, folks. And it ain't the federal government. They're naked as a jaybird. Trump is slowly transitioning us into a new system. And his largest weapon is the Bitcoin. And the progressives know it. It's why sleepy ass Joe Biden and all of his progressive shitheads were so anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto, because they know that is their silver bullet. That's what takes them out, because the currency is the only thing all of us share. I could walk right down the road here and I could have $100 bill and I could walk into any grocery store. Do you think they give a fuck? Nope. I got that money. They want it. I got it. And that's how they control us. Taxation. Guys, this whole 125 years, what this was all for was to remove the capital, the money, the control of money and wealth out of the private sector into the public sector. And when I say private and public, what I mean is private, individuals, and public, which means government. That's what this whole thing's actually been about. Look at what's happened. The U.S. economy, the private sector has shrank, and the federal government has grown at approximately the same rate of loss and gain over the last 80 years. You think that's, well, geez, I guess just, government gets bigger. No, it's because the federal government has absorbed all of the productivity into the government and employed people. Government employees is just another welfare program. Trust me, my dad worked at the post office. He was a federal employee. And God rest his soul, he was the laziest motherfucker I ever met. When I was about 12, remember like back in the old days when they'd take your son to work day? We went into the post office, and the first thing he did was grab nudie magazines off of the friggin' conveyor belt, and we'd go up to the office. Well, a couple nudes, and I think there was a couple of magazines you read, like hunting or something like that. You know what my dad's job was at the post office? To sit and wait for one phone to ring. That was it. If it never rang, he didn't do jack shit all day. And most of the time it didn't ring because he was in package, or he was a package accounting supervisor. That phone, I think it rang once while we were there. And he hopped on his little shit-ass fucking computer and that one was transferred over to, area 4 or whatever the fuck he said. Hung up the phone and that was it. And I remember asking him, this is what you do? He was like, yep. And I'm like, all right, well, can I have one of those Playboys? Because most bureaucrats are unnecessary. Abso-fucking-lutely. Because it's made up bullshit. If you're a regulator, what's your job? Well, people have to ask us permission. And if they didn't have to, well, I wouldn't have a job. So they employ through regulation. The majority of all of the friggin' bureaucrats are useless. Not as people, just their jobs. Red tape. That's a government system. That is a communistic government structure. When you have the Bureau of Land Management, I'm pretty sure the land can fucking take care of itself. Why the fuck you managing it? And if you are, why is the federal government doing that? How about you leave it to the states where the land's in? Then we have education system or the education department. Well, how well has that worked? We spend so much money on educating our people. And look at them now. Look at the result of the majority of the Americans who graduate high school. They are not high school level. You go anywhere else and you see their high school level? No. We are producing little emotional dipshits in our school. I can remember, and this is me with friggin' my kids. I can remember in high school, I think junior year or something like that, one of my kids had an assignment on the Constitution. I got all excited. I was like, hell yeah, let's dig into it. You know, all they wanted them to do was memorize it. Just to memorize it. Not realize what each one of them was for and why they were put there. And they had no idea what the Federalist Papers were. I remember asking my son, well, have you read the Federalist Papers? And he's like, what's that? And I was like, you don't know what the Federalist Papers are? Then how the hell are you reading the Constitution? The Federalist Papers were the basis of the Constitution. What the fuck? And this is the edge. See, they don't want you to know the real history, because if you know the real history, then it all makes sense. If you realize what the Magna Carta was, if you knew what that led to, or hell, let's go further back. If you knew the government organization of Greece, I dare you, ask a high school senior right now what the structure of the Greece government was years and years ago. They probably, or you really want to fuck with them, ask them who Caesar was and watch their face go fucking blank. Or any relative history, real history. I mean, to this day, the majority of people don't even realize that Winston Churchill had a meeting on a boat with Roosevelt to plan out World War II. They're like, wait, what? What? Yeah. Well, how do we know that? Roosevelt's nephew wrote about it in his diary, saying, and he was sitting right there with him, that they need to figure out a reason for the American people to passionately and emotionally get involved in World War II. Because we had just had World War I, the war to end all wars. Well, how'd that fucking work out? The American people wanted nothing to do with another world war. Then all of a sudden, Japan somehow sneaked past Midland. I'm sorry, not Midland, Midway. Do you know why they called it Midway? Because it was in the middle. The ships had to pass Midway, which we had control of, in order to get to Hawaii. And then, ironically, the day that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor was the only day ever in the history of Pearl Harbor where every ship and every aircraft was on a maintenance pause. So they were all out of operation. How fucking convenient. Oh, and that happened about 3 months after the meeting with Roosevelt and Churchill. Boy. And Japanese, that was stupid. That was stupid to get us involved in World War II. Oh, wait. Unless the whole goal of everything was the war. The only thing holding up this wonderful, beautiful war we're about to have is the lack of want from the American people. The American people don't want jack shit to do with this war, boys. We got to change that. We gotta make these Americans want to go blow up shit and kill people. However, should we do this? How about we kill off a bunch of American soldiers? Yeah, that'll get them going. This government is corrupt, and I don't even care who's in office. The system is corrupt. So anyone who's in the presidency and who isn't ripping apart the system is part of the system. They're put there just to have a face. That's what we've had. That's what we've had since 1988. Ronald Reagan was the last even remotely independent president. And now it's just by a little bit. Then who'd we have? Bush. Oh, fuck yeah. Let's bring in this dipshit who absolutely had something to do with JFK. Let's make him president. Then let's go to war with some fuckers out in the middle of the desert for no apparent reason. Oh, except they were trying to get paid in other than the petrodollar. And a few of them wanted to back their currency with gold. Fuck that. We need to go send them some freedom. The system of the federal government is your enemy. The bureaucracy is your enemy, not the people who work there, not the average Jane clocking in, clocking out, pushing papers, piling up red tape. They're not your enemy. The legislative organization of the bureaucracy is your enemy. It was created to enslave you, your children, and indoctrinate you, which means lie to you. They lied to you, and so many people have been living out a lie, thinking it was history, thinking it was accurate, thinking they had a view of the world that America was the good guys. Yeah, go us. No, the American people are good people, but the government is the motherfuckers. Millions of people have died because of government. Millions. And they want to tell us that the biggest threat to humanity was COVID. Less people died of COVID than war. So, which one should we really be worried about? It's all bullshit, folks. It's all bullshit. 9/11, bullshit. Oklahoma City, bullshit. It's the system at work. The system is there to enslave you and emotionally control you. And your money is manipulated since 1913. Guys and gals, that shit ends. Because now we have the poison pill to the system. because the money is the blood that runs through the veins of the beast. And we're about to replace it. We are draining all of that blood out of the system of the machine, and we are absorbing it in a decentralized currency. And this is the future, folks. Just look at what Trump's doing. Why would he write an executive order? Yeah, let's put some Bitcoin in all the 401ks. If you were Trump and you wanted to make America great again, what does that mean? It means make America rich again. It means make America and Americans wealthy, rich, improve their financial situation. That's why they haven't announced the federal government purchasing Bitcoin yet. He's letting the infection of the Bitcoin work its way through the system. The monetary virus known as the Bitcoin is working its way through the whole financial system of the globe. Mostly here in America, which Trump's fine with. Trump don't give a flying fuck if any of the other countries ever even adopt Bitcoin. Because the old global currency was the dollar. As we all get richer using the Bitcoin, we change the globe. And the only way that the old system, the old banks, and I don't blame JP Morgan. And when I say don't blame JP Morgan, I mean don't blame the corporation. Blame the leadership of the corporation, because a corporation is just like a gun. It's a system. It is the intent of the operators of the system that are bad. And as the price of the Bitcoin goes up, let me rephrase that, as the value goes up inside the system, the corrupt areas of the system will die because it injects reality. Because eventually it eliminates all of the derivatives. And that's our future, folks. We have a great future ahead of us. All right, I'm actually going to wrap this up. I have an interview this afternoon at 4 with a very special guest. I hope you guys watch, because him and I are going to talk about exactly what I just talked about and go more in depth. Everyone, have a great day. I love you guys. And don't forget, get your Bitcoin. We have loans right down here, no KYC. give us a call, 941-413-6920. Oh, and we also do home equity loans, and we get you Bitcoin. Welcome to the club, folks. Everyone, have a great day. Let me move this little cursor over here. I love you guys, and I'll see you at 4. Bye-bye.
Are you buying and selling cryptos on the same laptop that you're using to browse the internet, read your email, and visit social media sites? If so, you're exposing your cryptos to theft. Whenever you're online, you're at risk of getting hacked and having your identity stolen. How would you feel if someone stole all of your cryptos? What would that do to your finances? Guard your cryptos with a safe and secure laptop from CALIX Solutions. Each laptop is set up just for you and your cryptos, and then we walk you through exactly how it works. Don't risk the security of your cryptos. Order a crypto laptop from CALIX Solutions now to secure your crypto future. Learn more at calixsolutions.io.